Good evening. My name is Matt Sternig. I will be chairing this evening's Plan Commission meeting. Today is July 1st, 24 hours prior to this meeting. This meeting was properly posted. I acknowledge a quorum of this meeting with Paul Fisher excused. I will be chairing the meeting this evening as Mayor Ongert is traveling and will be joining remote. If you could all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First agenda item this evening is approval of minutes. We have two separate Plan Commission meetings that we need to approve minutes for. The first one is the special meeting held on June 16th, 2025. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Was that Mike? Mike and Jed?
Yep.
Perfect. Any comments, questions, additions, deletions? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I'll remember to delay a second.
Yeah, sorry.
Nope, that's all right, Mr. Mayor. Second one is the Plan Commission special meeting, June 16th, 2025 at 7 o'clock. Same thing. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
And a second by Mike. Any questions, comments, additions, deletions? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 4, we've got a public hearing and action for Tax Increment District. I'll turn it over to you, John.
Great, thank you. So our first item tonight under Planning Commissions and action, or public hearings and action, is for our Tax Increment District regarding the creation of Tax Increment District number 18, the proposed boundaries of the district and proposed project plan for the district. And then we also have a second item, which is the consideration and possible action for a resolution establishing those boundaries, which is a recommendation to council. So I'm going to, we'll probably do the presentation first, and then you can ask if there's public comment, I would guess. I think that would be probably helpful for those in the audience. And then you could probably end with the closing of the hearing from that perspective. So I'll turn it over to Phil real quick. Phil, do you want me to do an introduction real quick and then you'll get into the detail like we did this morning? Or?
Sounds good, John.
Okay, sounds great. Let's see if we can. All right, it's already up on the screen, great. So Tax Increment District, proposed District 18. In the project plan, there is a map that's on page 14 of the plan, and I'll try to call the numbers out for you. You're controlling the screen? Okay. So there's essentially 4 parcels that are planned for industrial. Those would be on the east side of the map, and then those 2 parcels that are going towards the west are planned for residential. So it is a mixed-use tax increment financing district. This is generally south of Roscoe Road between Main Street on the west and River Road to the east. That's just slightly off this map. The parallel line that you see on the right of your map is actually the railroad, and then just north of Roscoe is actually the Eisenbahn Trail. This district is adjacent to another tax increment district, which is down by Rail Place and Hone Road. So this particular district, as I mentioned, is a mixed use. If we, I think we can probably go to the next map on page 16 that depicts it more in color. The purple area would be planned for residential that consists of proposed uses of single family, ranch villas, and townhomes. This would be a next gen. It's being put together in the project plan as a next gen project with the county. So there have been conversations and partnerships starting to develop with Washington County as well as EDWC for some assistance financing from that perspective. The homes in next gen, they are capped at a certain price, so it's 320, 360, and 420. You have to have a certain percentage within the neighborhood of each of those categories, so it's fitting sort of what might be referred to as that missing middle within southeastern Wisconsin and Washington County and West Bend. So we don't see a lot of homes in that particular area. Next Gen is a program where the county provides a loan to the developer, and that loan's about $20,000 per unit. And then when the unit sells, then the county gets their money back. And so it's a revolving loan fund program that they've created. Generally, for the industrial area, they have potentially two people that are interested at this time. So we have somebody interested in a 10-acre site, and then we have another company that's interested in the ability to have rail access for their facility. Rail access is pretty limited in our area. We were told by this particular individual the next best place that they could find would be Jefferson, but they're already currently located in Washington County, so they'd like to be able to expand their business here. So we have some potential development on both sides in terms of those things, working with two different developers on this particular project. From infrastructure, the infrastructure would be Roscoe Road improvements, multi-use path, connecting to Main Street to Eisenbahn Trail from that perspective, a roundabout just outside the district at River and Roscoe to handle the increased traffic in that location. And then outside of the district at Main and Roscoe, that intersection will, its jurisdiction is the county, and the county's currently planning improvements for that. So that intersection with the increase of traffic would need to be improved, but it's already in process moving forward for improvements. So we don't need to really worry about that. And then the lift station, which is down on Ron, down near Rail Place, we would have to decommission that lift station because the sewer that would connect to it would be gravity fed. So we're actually would get remove a piece of infrastructure, have a simpler system in the area. That's kind of the gist of it, and I'm going to turn it over to Phil to get a little bit deeper into the details.
Sounds good, thank you. Jim, can you go back up to page 2? So I'll walk through the project plan in a little bit of detail. I'm not going to read everything to you. I know the chief hoped to get ahead of me tonight. One change on the key dates that I learned of today. We're going to be holding again, if everything's approved tonight by the Plan Commission, on August 4th, we're going to be holding the council action, not the July 21st date that is identified. And then the Joint Review Board is scheduled for approximately 2 weeks after that. But this morning, we held a Joint Review Board meeting, which is a representative of all the taxing bodies. We're there. Went through the project plan with them to get input. Really didn't have a lot of input from them. They were, I think, very pleased with the next gen housing being part of the residential element, and everybody's usually pretty supportive of any type of industrial development. So a lot of support this morning from all the taxing bodies. A few questions that came up regarding kind of pairing industrial and residential right next to each other, and kind of, how do you make that work with some of the screening and such. So we went through that with those representatives, but they felt pretty comfortable. So next page, Jim, I have an executive summary I'm going to walk through really quick. This is 164 acres after you remove about 13 acres of wetland. So the wetland can be within the boundaries of the district, but we need to kind of pare it out and identify the actual acreage that's available for development. As John alluded to already, this is going to be a combination of industrial and commercial, so it meets the mixed-use tax increment district criteria of at least 2 land uses, making up 50% of the area. That means it could be open for up to 20 years. That's the maximum life for a mixed-use tax increment district. It's primarily going to pay for infrastructure, and we'll kind of leave it at that. There are incentives that we'll talk about that go back to the developers, but it's really to help them pay for infrastructure internally within their development. The city's practice for quite some time is really to focus a lot of the TID funds around infrastructure, knowing that that's really what the critical need is to make projects work financially. So this kind of fits well within the city's past practice over the last number of years. Our estimated project costs are 35 million. I know it's a big number, but a significant portion of that is going to be what's called pay-as-you-go, or an MRO, municipal revenue obligation. And essentially puts the burden on the developer to actually increment new taxes, and then a portion of that goes back to them on a contractual basis with the city. So the city's not out borrowing money. You just have an agreement with them that they get reimbursed back a portion of the new increment, which is new taxes that is being generated. So you'll see that in here, we have about 7.7 million for infrastructure, really to serve Roscoe Road along with the roundabout, which is that Roscoe Road and River. We have the lift station project. Again, we have the incentives, which again will tie back to the developer needing to perform to receive those at 21.7 million. And then we do have some estimated project costs related to interest earnings, some administrative costs each year that the city can charge back, some administrative costs against the tax increment district as well. Those are the elements that make up the 35 million. Project incremental value, what we've identified at this point, working with the two different developers. On the residential piece, it's about 105 million, 315 units. At this point, obviously, any plan that gets moved forward will have to come back in front of Plan Commission and Council. But right now, what they're proposing is 315 next-gen housing units in that area. And then on the industrial side, over a number of years, they're projecting about 75 million in new development, including the two projects that John referenced already. So if this all comes together, this will close out in 19 years, so 1 year earlier than the maximum life that is available. Jim, if you can go, I think our page number is going to be a little different. So if you can go to page number 14 in your packet. John already touched on the parcels. We have 6 parcels. Those parcels, when you look at where they are value-wise today, the actual value of those 6 parcels is 1.3 million. So that on that 1.3 million, which is called the base value, each of the taxing jurisdictions, the county, school, technical college, and the city will get your share of that $1.3 million pie, $1.3 million pie. Anything that is built, that 180 million I talked about, stays with the city, and it funds all the projects that are being proposed, the different infrastructure and incentive projects that we just talked about. So that 1.3 million will hopefully grow to about 180 million once this is all fully built out. On the next page, you'll see we have a map showing, the following page, I'm sorry. John touched on this already, and the purple is the residential. In the kind of pinkish red color is the industrial area. And one of the requirements under a mixed-use tax increment district is that we can't have more than 35% of the total acreage be devoted to newly platted residential. All of this will be newly platted residential. So we have to do a calculation and make sure that that requirement is met. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then also, within that 35% area for newly platted residential, we have to have a density of at least 3 units per acre or greater. The concept behind TIF, and when you start talking about residential, is they want more of an urban type environment. They don't want 1 acre or 3 acre lots. These are a little bit more infill type developments, higher density kind of neighborhoods. So if you go to the following, I'm gonna have you skip down 4 pages. Nope, right there, one back, thank you. This is that calculation I talked about, the 6 parcels, 164 acres. Right now, what we have is an industrial being 102 acres, newly platted residential is 62. And we can subtract from the newly platted residential public infrastructure, so water, sewer, streets, stormwater, ponds, et cetera, that are gonna be within that residential area, estimated to be about 20%. We ended up at 30% newly platted residential and about a little over 6 units per acre or for this development. So it's a dense development that'll be realized down in this area, which is really one of the criteria for the next gen housing program as well. Jim, if you go to about 4 or 5, I think 6 more pages down, I'll tell you when to stop. Next, right here. One of the things that we are also required to do is provide a list of projects that fall outside the boundaries of the district, but are still gonna be paid for out of the TID funds. And those projects are the lift station project that John referenced, the Rusco Road. There's an east and west segment that fall just outside the boundaries of the tax increment district. All of that is still gonna be paid for through the tax increment district. And also the roundabout at River and Rusco, while that's just outside the boundaries of the district, that will be, again, affecting this development and will be paid for out of the tax increment district. So as this stands right now, we're not projecting that any of the costs that have been identified here will be picked up through the general fund, through the water utility or the sewer utility. So it'll fall into the TID fund to be fully paid by the tax increment district, thus not falling on the ratepayers and nor the general taxpayers in the city. So 3 pages in, there's another map that you'll see right there. You'll see that we had to identify, one more page, Jim. Thank you. So if you look at this map, you'll see on Rusco Road, the location of those 2 segments that fall outside the district. They're highlighted in blue. The Rusco and River roundabout, which is highlighted in kind of an orange dot, and then the lift station on the southern end of the industrial development. So we had to, again, identify the location of the projects that are going to be paid for out of the tax increment district. And on the following map, we have a half-mile radius map, which is another requirement if you're going to pay for projects outside the boundaries. They have to fit within a half mile. Obviously, these are adjacent to and they fit well within the tax increment district. So 2 pages in, we have a more detailed list of the project costs. Relatively small print here, but you can see 1.3 million for the roundabout, about 6.4 million for the Rusco Road reconstruction. The lift station is relatively small. And then you can see where it says PAYGO, items number 4, 5, and 6. These really tie back to the development incentives that I talked about that will go back to the different developers. So on the industrial side, it's F Street and Keller. They're gonna earn roughly 12% of the new increment that they generate back to them. That fits, again, in line with what the city's past practice has been on other developments and other tax increment districts. You'll see on the residential, we have the 6.3 million. On the industrial, about 9 million that they can earn back. And then the last one is really the 6.3 million. John talked about the next gen housing being $20,000 incentive per unit. So 315 units times 20,000, that's the 6.3 million that you see that would be a part of that. Now, there may be different funding mechanisms through the county. We'll look at that as well, but that doesn't necessarily need to be refined within this project plan. 2 pages in from that, you'll see that we have the development assumptions. These were provided by F Street and Keller on the industrial and by the residential developer, that 105 units on the residential being built out really over about a 5 to 6 year period, and then a little longer build out for industrial, which is pretty normal and what we would normally see, unless they get 1 or 2 very large users. This is a little bit less aggressive than what the developer initially proposed on the residential side. They're looking at a 3 to 4 year build out. They've been now a little more conservative, came back with new numbers. I think we all feel a little more comfortable with this absorption and what it could look like over the next 5 years in that area. So again, we don't come up with these numbers. We really take the information provided by the developers, insert it into our models along with the project costs and the build out cash flow out. So that's how we get to the $180 million development projection over the next roughly 10 years. On the following page, we are also required to come up with a revenue for the district. And so we identify the projected annual revenue that would be generated in this tax increment district in this chart. So a lot of numbers on this chart, but if you look at the column that says tax increment and you follow that down, that's essentially what the $180 million being built out will generate annually and cumulatively. Now, there's a couple of assumptions that we chose to kind of leave alone as part of this analysis. We have kept the tax rate the same. What you have seen, like most other communities in the state of Wisconsin, is a declining tax rate. Property values increasing, tax rates decreasing. That's what we've seen over the last 5 to 6 years, pretty substantially throughout the state. We think that's gonna level out a little bit. We're not quite seeing that yet. We still see real estate values increasing pretty substantially. But on the flip side, because we're not showing a tax rate drop, what we're not also showing is any property appreciation occurring from the new development. So we think they're gonna really kind of offset each other, and we feel pretty comfortable with this revenue assumption based on the development that they had provided. If we go 3 more pages in, where it says one more to the cash flow. I don't know what I'm gonna eat tomorrow, but I have to prepare a 20-year model always as to what this is gonna look like. You know, what we have in here right now is a revenue that I just went through with you from the $180 million being developed. We have Rusco and the roundabout that the city would likely have to borrow funds for to be reimbursed and paid back out of the TID increment. And then from that, we have the 3 different MROs, municipal revenue obligations, with these 2 different developers. So that's how this is kind of laid out. Now, within a development agreement, which we don't have yet, we'll lay out specifics as to the flow of funds. So what happens with the first dollar that comes in? Goes to pay the debt payments of the city first. That's my preference. That should be yours too. And then what's left over after that gets allocated to these MROs. So we'll have to work through that with the different developers to make sure they're comfortable with this, how this is kind of laid out. But we haven't had that discussion at that level of detail yet. But that would be past practice, again, of the city. That's really what you've done historically. Section 10, which is the next page, we do have some annexed property that's been annexed within the last 3 years. And the state statutes then require that you make a payment, in this case of the town of West Bend, for the land that was annexed within the last 3 years, their tax portion, which is really farmland, assessed, so very minimal over the next 5 years. So that's been built into this as well. We don't, on section 11, the next page, we don't expect any property, once this is built out, to be devoted to retail business. We're not expecting that down there. We know there's gonna be some zoning changes that are gonna be required. This is ag land, so it's gonna have to be rezoned, but it fits well within the comprehensive plan for this area, and really adjacent on the industrial side, really adjacent to an industrial tax increment district already. We're now looking on section 13 to relocate or displace any individuals as a result of this. And then I'll just jump to the second last page. We will need an opinion letter from the city attorney, which we will provide to them, but what Ian's review is to make sure that all of the required elements by statute have been incorporated into our project plan. He's not looking at the merits of the projects, the cost estimates or the development assumptions, but does it contain all the elements that are required by statute? So that's a pretty quick overview. Be happy to answer any questions, or if I don't know them, I'll turn them over to John.
Any questions? Mike, go right ahead.
The intersection of Main Street and Rusco, the county, are they gonna improve that in conjunction with this project?
No, they're on their own timeline. I would anticipate, Max might be able to, he had the communication a couple weeks ago or months ago. Time escapes both of us sometimes, I think. But Max, do you recall what that timeline was?
They didn't really give a timeline. They were consulting with DOT on what their options were as far as mini roundabout or full roundabout. I don't recall seeing a timeline, but because of recent events at that intersection, I think they were looking to do it as soon as possible.
And I guess in terms of the staggering or the time frame of some of those other improvements that are in the tax increment district, I think what we've done in the past is more on a conservative basis. So we enter into those development agreements, and then the developers will start to develop, and then at some point we will then essentially trigger those construction type things. So I think what would happen in this scenario, hypothetically, is assuming that the district's created, we enter into a development agreement. I would anticipate that construction wouldn't occur until for any housing or industrial buildings until next summer. So we wouldn't have any increment until 1/1 of '27. And so I think what we would do is probably 25, 26, we might do construction drawings, but we wouldn't really spend much more money than the studies and the drawings and that kind of thing. And then once the increment's coming in and we are comfortable that things are flowing either ahead of schedule or right on schedule, that's when we would start to evaluate which projects would happen. I think the first project that actually would happen is the decommissioning of the lift station, which is about $15,000, which is a fairly low amount because that industrial developer will be connecting the sewer up to that system. So that would be kind of the first thing out the door in terms of Roscoe and the roundabout. I think those are going to be just slightly down the road once we see development in that increment coming in, because I think that's more of a conservative. We're going to have to go out and borrow that money, so we want to make sure that it's on schedule. So
To piggyback off of Mike's question, I would just make the recommendation, and I'm assuming that this is something that we already know, but I'm going to state it for the record, that we need to coordinate with the county on the timing of 2 different roundabouts on 2 different north-south arteries into the city of West Bend so that they are not happening at the same time, because stranger things have happened.
we could always try to find a third roundabout.
Jed, go right ahead.
Looking at page, sorry about that. Packet page 32, which is the detailed list of the estimated project costs. So project ID or lines 4 and 5 represent what the developers are going to get back for the residential infrastructure. Is that correct?
Item 4 is residential infrastructure. Item 5 is
the
industrial infrastructure. And then item 6 is that down payment assistance through the county.
So as far as the residential infrastructure, what does that refer to? What is residential infrastructure?
They'll have to, well, I haven't seen
I can-
specific plans. I'll
So,
ask John.
The developer will have to extend from his subdivision to the points where the water and the sewer are stubbed out. They'll have to extend those down Roscoe Road. They're going to have the infrastructure within the subdivision. They're currently proposing there's a farm crossing through a wetlands. There'll probably have to be a culvert. That is a preferred option, assuming they can get approval through the DNR, because that creates connectivity for fire and police. There's some extra costs from that perspective. Both developers have given us their cost of infrastructure. Their cost of infrastructure way exceeds this 12% number. So it's certainly not paying for that full amount. The roads and the sewer and the pipes are going to be much higher. This is just sort of the best opportunity. From the residential component, what the developer has indicated is helping with the infrastructure, as well as helping with that $20,000 per unit to pay back to the county. That helps keep that cost within that 320, 360, and 420, and allows him to deliver a high-quality home and structure at that point. If this was a conventional subdivision, you're probably going to see the homes in the 450s, 5s, and up. And so in conjunction with Next Gen, this infrastructure assistance in the PAYGO helps create that housing that's in that kind of missing middle.
Okay, and I was wondering what percentage that represented, and you answered that. Thank you, John.
Yep.
The other question I had was on the down payment incentive residential, item 6. Can you explain, this is, the 20,000 per unit is a county program, but it's coming out of our pocket?
So it can happen so in the county, has happened two different ways. There's Next Gen projects in Kewaskum, Jackson, and in Hartford. Some of them have been in TIFs. Actually, most of them all have been in TIFs, but they've been structured a little differently. So the one in Jackson, for instance, the village owned the land. So in that situation, what happened was the land was actually, we'll just call it almost free, so the developer could build on it. So that was the incentive that they had. And what in that situation happened was the developer built the homes at a value of, it sold at 320, but they built it for 300. So when the house sold, the person buying the house took out the mortgage for 320, and that extra 320 was the developer was then paying back to the county. So that was one scenario. And in other scenarios, what has happened is the Tax Increment Financing District provides that as an incentive. So in this situation, that increment that house is creating is essentially paying the 20,000. So they would sell the house at 320, but then the TIF is picking up the 20,000 based on essentially the value that house is creating over time.
So the county is upfronting?
Yes, so the county, yes, so from a Next Gen, I'll back up. So I explained the back half. The front half is the county has a program called Next Gen Housing. The idea is to try to essentially have residents of Washington County or people who've grown up in Washington County be able to start their lives or continue living in Washington County in an affordable property without them being, totally mortgage strapped for housing, that kind of thing. And part of that component is to create residential neighborhoods that many people grew up in, post-war, pre-war, World War II, smaller lots. Typically, the ones that have been built are a little bit smaller homes instead of 300,000 square foot homes, that kind of thing. They're on a much smaller scale. What basically the county has done is they have funding that they have in hand, and then they basically give a loan to the developer up front. That developer can use that as attractive for a bank for borrowing the rest of the money that they need to have. They can use that for that infrastructure, for those upfront cost from that perspective, and then they just Basically, the agreement is when the house is built and it's sold, that 20,000 goes back to the county. They use it as a revolving loan fund, so that allows them to take that 20,000 and be able to reinvest that in another neighborhood somewhere else in the county.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions, Jed. Thank you. Any other questions? There being no questions, thank you very much, Phil.
Thank you, appreciate it.
If you wouldn't mind just sticking around for a couple seconds. At this point, we will open a public hearing regarding the proposed creation of Tax Increment District Number 18, the proposed boundaries of the district, and the proposed project plan for the district. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to address the Plan Commission, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address, share your comments, and we will move forward. I have a motion to move to close to, I have a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Jed and Scott. Any questions, comments on closing? There being none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. The next item will be taking action on a resolution establishing the boundaries of and approving the project plan for Tax Increment District Number 18. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jeff
Second.
and Mike. Any comments or questions on resolution establishing the boundaries of approving the project plan for Tax Increment District Number 18? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying, oh, sorry. John, go right ahead.
It's actually kind of for Phil. How does this, as far as the city debt, where does this put us? I mean, we always look at the 27% or, I mean, where are we gonna be falling on that? Is there an idea?
Well, I don't think you'll be borrowing any money for a couple of years for this district. I mean, at least till the end of 26, maybe 27. You know, every year, well, we'll see what happens going forward, but with a new administrator, but, you know, every year I've come back in front of the council, kind of walk through the TIF districts, walk through the kind of the debt, you know, policy practice of the city, and I'll probably be doing that prior to. So I don't have a number for you tonight, but I don't see the city borrowing any money for this for at least a year and a half to 2 years.
Good question. Thank you, John. Thank you, Phil. Any other questions? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much, Phil. Appreciate your time and detailed report out. Thank you very much. The next item is a 2020 comprehensive plan. John, can you walk us through this?
Sure. Our next public hearing for this evening is for an amendment number 37 on the request to change the land use plan from industrial to single-family residential and two-family residential for approximately 0.4 acres of land north of Highmount Road and on the west side of Stratford Road by the city of West Bend. And this item is in conjunction with item C on the agenda. So I think, Jim, am I correct? You're going to kind of present both at the same time?
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
So let me just read that one, and we'll open both of them up, and then Jim can present both halves. So this is the second item, item C1, is for a request to rezone, do a map amendment for a property north of Highmount Road on the west side of Stratford from M2 heavy industrial to RS4 single-family residential to RD2 two-family residential by laying Urban Sustainable Homes LLC. I'll turn it over to Jim.
Sure, thank you. So the first item is the land use request. So the developer is asking for a land use change from industrial and single-family to duplex or two-family. This is about a little under a half an acre of land that's being proposed for the change. The land is currently vacant. This was platted back in 1920. Reason why it hasn't been developed over the past years is that it needed utilities extended to the property for this. So sewer has been extended to this area. Water will need to be extended as part of the project on behalf of or the developer will have to extend that. The land use in the areas are single-family to the north, two-family to the west, you have industrial to the south, and then parklands to the east. The change to the two-family request is actually, in staff's opinion, a good transition from the industrial to the south to the residential to the north. It really has no impact to the parklands to the east. In fact, the parkland, or these lots will actually benefit from the parklands to the east. Staff feels that this is an acceptable change and asks the commission to consider this. And if the commission agrees that we approve the resolution that's included in the packet, acknowledging the change, and then we would move forward to council for the final action on that land use change. The second part of this is the public hearing for the zoning. This would actually change the zoning from the single-family, RS4 single-family, and the M2 heavy industrial to the RD2 two-family residential that the developer is requesting. So again, this has kind of the same components. We evaluated the zoning use with the other uses in the area, and we found it to be an acceptable change for the area. So we're just asking Plan Commission for consideration of that also.
Well, thank you for those introductions. If I'm reading this right, we probably do need to hold two separate public hearings for this. So the first one will be, I'm reading that right? Right? Okay.
That's correct. We'll have two separate hearings for this.
That being said, first I will open a public hearing and request action. We'll open a public hearing for a change in the recommended 2020 land use plan from industrial and single-family residential to two-family residential for approximately 0.41 acres of land located north of Highmont Road and on the west side of Stratford Road by the City of West Bend, tax key 1119-024-0118. If anybody here would like to address the Plan Commission at this public hearing, please step to the microphone, state your name and address, and address your comments to the commission.
Motion to close public hearing?
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
And was that Scott?
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you very much. We've got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any comments or questions on closing? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next,
Actually, we need a motion for the,
we have to actually now take action on it,
we have
correct?
to take action on the resolution, please.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to take a action on the resolution.
Forward the motion.
Thank you, Scott
Second.
and Mike. We have a motion and a second on the adoption of that resolution. Any comments or questions? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we'll open a public hearing for a zoning map amendment located at north of Highmont Road on the west side of Stratford Road from M2 Heavy Industrial and RS4 Single Family Residential District to RD2 Two-Family Residential District by Lang Urban Sustainable Homes LLC, tax key 1119-024-0118. The public hearing is now open.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Max
Second.
and Jed. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Next is to take action on the zoning map amendment just mentioned. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jeff
Second.
and Scott. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next on our agenda is a conditional use permit. John?
Our last public hearing for this evening is a conditional use permit for grading and other site improvements within the FFO flood fringe overlay district located at 139 and 145 North Main Street by 4MH Properties 2 LLC by Mike Husar. That tax key number is 1119-141-0104, and I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you. So this is, it's a two-part component. We have the conditional use for actually the work within the floodplain. And then there's also a site plan approval that's scheduled later on the agenda for the actual site improvements and building improvements being done for the property. So the property owner is looking to do modifications to the building on the east side of the building, redoing his stairs and patio, and also a lower parking area / patio. As a part of this, because we're in the floodplain overlay district, it requires a conditional use permit to be issued by the city, and also to have a flood analysis done to indicate whether the improvements are affecting the flood elevation or not within the area. The developer has hired a consultant, and their engineer has reviewed the floodplain analysis that they conducted. They feel that in their narrative that the floodplain will not be negatively affected with the improvements being proposed. These improvements include redoing the lower entrance area and also removing a part of the staircase that's existing in that area as part of this. We sent out a public notice and notified everyone within 200 feet. Staff received no inquiries in regards to this. We've also sent it to the Museum of Wisconsin Art for comment and received no comments in regards to that for either the site plan or the conditional use. Staff would recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the listed conditions.
Great, thank you, Jim. At this point, I'll open a public hearing and for a conditional use permit to allow for grading and other site improvements within the FFO Flood Fringe Overlay District located at 139 to 145 North Main Street by 4MH Properties 2 LLC. Mike Husar, tax key number 1119-141-0104. Anyone in the audience care to address the Plan Commission? Now is your time to do so.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Thank you, Mike and Scott. Any discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Now I'll entertain a motion for a conditional use permit to allow for that grading and other site improvements within that FFO as we previously discussed. Thank you, Jed.
Second.
And Max, we have a motion and a second. Any discussions, comments, or questions? Yes, Mike, go right ahead.
Currently, they have a dumpster back there. Are they moving that out of the floodplain or enclosing it?
I'm not sure if that's actually their dumpster. It might be the restaurants. It's something we'd have to look into. But yeah, as far as I know, there's no outdoor refuse for that building.
Any other comments, questions? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Now we'll move on to our regular agenda. The first is an extraterritorial certified survey map. John?
This extraterritorial survey map is located at Wildwood Road and County Highway D. It is a request of Thomas Kuhn. It is tax key number T2-0083 in the town of Barton.
Yeah, real quick with this one, it's a two-lot certified survey map. Essentially what they're doing is redividing that entire area into two lots. The western one will be used for a home site, and then the eastern one is, the western one is agricultural land, and then the eastern one would be a home site. The CSM does identify The road right-of-way, staff is requesting revision to, for an additional 17-foot of reserved right-of-way for the southern portion of Wildwood Road to be consistent with the official map requirements for the road width out in that area. Access will be provided from either Wildwood or from Highway D for either of these lots. Staff would recommend approval with the listed condition of minor technical corrections prior to recording the CSM.
Yeah, the west side will be the west window.
He'll need to speak.
Just,
The Wildwood side.
I'm sorry, that, my error.
All right.
Flip-flop it.
All right, so you got it, we've got it flip-flopped. Everybody understands the flip-flop there? All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the two lot extraterritorial certified survey map located at Wildwood Road in County Trunk Highway D by Thomas Keene, tax key T2-0083, Town of Barton.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mike and Scott. Any comments, questions? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. We'll move on to some site plans. John, take us away on these.
Sure. Our first, we have two site plans today. The first one is in relationship to that conditional use we just discussed a little while ago. It is a request for site plan and architectural building elevation modifications for the staircase, site grading, and other site improvements in the flood fringe overlay district at 139 and 145 Main Street by 4MH Properties 2 LLC, Mike Husar, taxi number 1119-141-0104. And before I turn it over to Jim, I will let you know that this did receive a facade grant from the business, Downtown Business Associate, or business, the bid, Downtown Business Improvement District, sorry. And so I just wanted to let you know that, and I'll turn it over to Jim.
All right, thank you. So the site plan goes hand in hand with that conditional use. The only thing really to add is that they're doing that upper patio. It's a 9-foot by 9-foot squared patio. They're also eliminating that staircase on the south side, as you can see from the rendering that they have, and upgrading the building materials. So the upper portion is just going to be pretty well cleaned up and just reconditioned for the existing brick. The lower portion where the deck is being changed and modified, they're actually putting in an aluminum clad siding that has a wood grain finish to it, and then also accenting the lower area with some dark gray corrugated metal panels. The entrance area will actually just be a bricked area with columns and going back to the building for that. So, I mean, the improvements are fairly minimal for that, but they're definitely upgrading it and refreshing the face on that. The other thing to make mention on is that the lower portion is either going to be a paver brick area or it's going to be stamped concrete. They had two options for that. And again, the grades will remain the same as what we have out there, just matching to the Riverwalk design that we had. Staff would recommend approval with the listed conditions.
Thank you for that, Jim. I'll entertain a motion. Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
And a second by Mike. Any comments or questions? John, go right ahead.
I didn't hear what the answer was to the dumpster question. What are they doing with it? There's
Yeah,
not-
I don't believe this site has dumpsters. I believe it's actually the site to the east.
Okay,
So as far as I know, we have no dumpsters for the Husar development. It's something we can look into and we'll talk to him about.
okay, or yeah, if they have cans or what, if they bring them in and out on garbage day, but that's definitely gonna be, that's a multi-tenant building.
Correct, yeah.
What are they doing with it?
So we
I
can.
believe the dumpsters are the one to the north.
Yeah, I'm
In
sorry,
this,
yeah, to
in
the
that little
north.
bump out, I think
Yeah.
they're to the north.
I believe it is for the restaurant to the north.
Thank you, John. Any other comments or questions?
John, you had mentioned something about they got a grant or something.
Yep.
what exactly is the grant money for? Is it for the riverside or what,
So the Business Improvement District, they kind of tax themselves, so they elect to tax them a certain amount, so that's how they get their money. They choose to invest that in different ways. They spent about $30,000 this year on the plants downtown. They spend money on the Christmas tree, other things, and then they have had a program, a facade program. So the facade program is intended to improve the looks and the appearance of the Business Improvement District. There's a lot of emphasis on restoration of historic facades, those types of things. And then the last couple years, they've been trying to get people to, as an incentive, to fix the riverfront facades after the city's put a lot of funding into that from that perspective. So Mr. Hussar has been working on this for about a year and a half, 2 years. So it's exciting to see. I mean, it's a pretty big building, so I think it will have a pretty big impact on the riverfront. So
that's great. Thank you. It looks great. I think anything we can do to keep improving that's great. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries.
second item tonight for site plans is a request of approval for a site plan for designating a pathway located on the east end of the site between the north test track and the southern test track within the development located at 1 Galway by Manitou Equipment America LLC. Tax key number 1119-132-0002. And I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you. So Manitou is requesting a site plan change for about a quarter-mile drive or a path leading from the north end to the south end of their development. This path is going to be a compacted stone path for the area. This is to help transport their equipment from one end to the other without creating an erosion problem and a mud problem for that. So we thought it was significant enough to bring it to commission to have, if you review it and endorse the proposal. Essentially, it's going to be all at grade, so they're not doing much mass site grading or anything. And but it is significant enough to change with their stormwater management plan. So as a requirement and a condition, we're saying that we ask that the commission require the stormwater management amendment be approved prior to finishing the path for the development.
Great, thank you for that, Jim. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Jed.
Second it.
And Scott, appreciate that. Any comments or questions? There being none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. Next on our agenda, 2020 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Amendments.
So we have, how many do we have today? We have 4 of those this evening. So the first item today that we have is a amendment number 38 for the consideration of approval to schedule a public hearing at the earliest convenience for a change of the land use plan for 12.9 acres located at 2151 West Washington Street. Tax key numbers 1119-151-0069 and 0070 from commercial and multifamily to government institutional by the city of West Bend. And I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you. So this proposal goes hand in hand with our fire station number 1 relocation and construction. During staff review, we were looking at the current zoning, which is commercial, and due to the types of infrastructure that they want to do for their accessory uses and for the property, we evaluated everything and thought that it was an appropriate change that we should be doing out there to help facilitate the construction of the fire station for their training tower and then their cold storage. It would fit in the commercial district that's existing out there, but we felt that since we're having other accessory uses that were a little more demanding, we figured that it was more appropriate to change this to the institutional use that we have going on for that property. Again, staff has looked throughout the area. We considered the different uses that are out there. between the commercial use, the multifamily use. We do have some other institutional uses out further west, so it's not that it's an inappropriate land use for consideration. So we're asking Plan Commission tonight to direct us if they feel that the change is appropriate, that we set the public hearing for public notices and hearings at the next available meeting for final consideration.
Great, thank you, Jim. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mike and John. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this topic prior to taking a motion or approving the motion to set the public hearing? Sorry. There being no discussion, all those in favor of scheduling the public hearing, signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries.
Great. Our second comprehensive plan and zoning map amendment this evening is to schedule a public hearing at the earliest convenience for a zoning map amendment from B4 General Business and Warehousing District to RM3 Multifamily Residential and Non-Shoreland Wetland District to the I1 Institutional Public Service and Non-Shoreland Wetland District located at 2151 West Washington Street by the City of West Bend.
Thanks. So this is just the actual zoning that we're establishing for that. So this is what we're proposing to change from the B4 general commercial to the I1 institutional. So this is actually setting the actual parameters and setbacks and building height requirements and open space and everything for this area. So again, we looked at the zoning use along with the other zonings within it, and it feels that, and staff feels that it's an appropriate consideration for changes zoning.
Thank you very much, Jim. I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Motion to set public hearing.
Thank you, John.
I'll second it.
And Scott, we'll go Scott. We have a motion, a second to schedule a public hearing. Jim, I would assume that this would be scheduled at the same time as the other public hearing.
Correct, they will be.
Wonderful. Any comments or questions on the scheduling of that adjoining public hearing?
Will it be in August?
Right now, we are looking at the August meeting just because of the timing
Right.
that we have, and we meet our requirements for the land use of the 30 days, and then also the public notice requirements for the zoning amendment.
Good.
Thank you for that question, Mike. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. And just for clarity, I don't know if it was mentioned by Jim when I stepped out of the room, but so next August meeting, there'll be the land use plan public hearing, the action for the zoning, and there'll also be the site plan review, architectural design items. So there'll be 3 items related to that project next month. The next item on the agenda this evening is the 2 of them are also together. So the first one is a consideration of approval for scheduling a public hearing at the earliest convenience for a map, land use map amendment from multifamily residential to mixed use located south of Barton Avenue and east of Rainbow Lake Lane by the City of West Bend. And Jim, do you want me to read both, and are you going to present twice or once?
I was going to present just once.
Okay, then I'll read the other one,
Just
just
because
for
they're,
clarity.
yeah, just
Yep.
because they're related.
So the second item, or the fourth item on the agenda is a discussion consideration of a schedule of public hearing at the earliest for a zoning map amendment from RM1 multifamily residential and SW shoreline wetland to RM1 multifamily residential, RD2 two-family residential, and RS4 single-family residential in the SW shoreline wetland located south of Barton Avenue and east of Rainbow Lake Lane by Hillcrest West Bend LLC.
Thank you. So back in May of this year, the Plan Commission reviewed a concept plan for a change in the uses on the property. The developer was asking for any kind of feedback for that. Plan Commission reviewed it, made a couple of suggestions for building location tweaks and modifications that would be implemented in future plans for future reapprovals. As part of that, we introduced the land use and the zoning request for the property. This is for approximately 28.5 acres, located just south of Barton Avenue and east of Rainbow Lake Lane. The changes that help facilitate for the continued development of the land for a mixed-use residential development, which would consist of 6 existing multifamily buildings, 8 proposed two-family buildings, and then also 6 single-family buildings. So this, again, would be a true mixed use or mixed residential use development for this area. Again, the Plan Commission reviewed that concept plan, so this is the actual formal request for the Plan Commission to consider the land use change, to move forward to set a public hearing for both the land use change and also the zoning. So as a part of that, the proposed zoning that we would have made kind of a rudimentary map, but you can see that the areas would consist of, the yellow areas are the single family, where the single family buildings are. The orange hatches where the two family buildings would be, and then the remaining area is part of the existing multifamily, and then also the shoreland area, which is kind of in the middle of the between the two development halves. So staff has evaluated the land use change and the zoning change, and feels that it could be an appropriate use. Again, we wanted the Plan Commission to review this and give their opinion and the endorsement, and instruct us to schedule the public hearing if you guys feel that this is a appropriate development pattern that we could consider. We did have a late phone call from the condominium association, asking some questions in regards to the process of everything. They did still have some concerns in regards to the roads and the private utilities. So they were asking if there was a way to try to get some resolution on that prior to setting the public hearing. So I wanted to bring that forward to the commission for a consideration, that to see if, what your thoughts were on that, whether we hold off until we have some resolution on that or some more clarification, and then set the public hearing, or just to carry on how our normal process.
Thank you for that setup. I guess we'll start by, I'll entertain a motion to consider the approval to schedule a public hearing.
I motion to do that.
Thank you, Scott.
Second.
And Mike. Any questions or comments?
This is for the land use?
This will be for the land use map amendment. We'll take 2 separate motions, but we'll start, and I think we can cover most of the discussion under the first. If one doesn't move forward, the second one doesn't move forward. So at this point, no. We've got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Thank you.
I would just add to Jim's statement from the homeowners association. So just for clarity out there for you to understand, when the project was developed, it's all private roads and private sewers and a private lift station. All of those things are funded, paid for, and maintained by the current association. And the way the restrictions are, there's some properties within this particular area that are not covered by that current association, so a second association would be created. And the question that apparently between the two parties, they've been having conversations, but there's not, from the condo association's perspective, it's not as clear as they would like it to be, that their concern is they've been maintaining it. When these first 12 units come on, they're going to be connecting into that private system using the private roads, the private sewer, and there's not a mechanism in order for that new association to actually pay the existing association the cost for maintenance and the use of those types of things. So just wanted to add a little extra clarity of what that concern is. When they get to phase 2, phase 3 of the development, those structures will be actually within the current association, And similarly, but they would have to amend the current development or current condo docs to address those new units. So they kind of have a lot of sort of legal documents they need to work out amongst themselves. They're private matters. There's not much the city can do for them. It's really both entities having their attorneys or their staff to negotiate those things the best that they can. So,
Thank you for.
John, can I
introducing the
ask a
setup.
question?
Go right ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so this public hearing could get very interesting if these two parties don't know exactly what the other one is doing yet. I mean, this public hearing, we could end up being, this could be like a public mediation between these two parties if the HOA comes up and asks questions and then the developer tries to come up and clarify things. So do you feel, I guess this is maybe a question for John and Jim. I mean, do you feel like these parties are ready for this public hearing, that they know what the other group is doing and they've got all their ducks in a row, legal ducks in a row and so forth?
I guess I would say that, Jim and I have met with both the developer and the association multiple times over the last 3 or 4 months. I think the developer's ready to move forward, but the association, clearly from today's conversation with the president of the association, isn't completely comfortable with the process. They were hoping that there'd be something that we as the city could do to assist. There really isn't anything. These are all private documents that are recorded at the Register of Deeds between two different parties. Even if there was disagreements in the future, those would be all handled in a private court system outside of anything the city could actually do from that perspective. So it really is a private matter. So even at the public hearing, if those questions do come up, there really isn't much we could do except, I guess, if there's an overly amount of concerns, the applicant, the developer could, in this case, the Planning Commission could recommend not approving them. Council could take a similar action. If that were to happen, I don't think that's the direction that the association, the current condo association, they would like to see the development happen. She's repeatedly indicated that they're excited about it. I think they may need an extra 30 days or 45 days to get their both attorneys together, sit down, work all those details out, have a comfort level that these are the two draft documents both parties are going to use. And then I think when we get to our public hearing component of the land use and the zoning, then I think there'd be a lot more comfort. So I think I don't know if Jim would say this, but I think from a homeowners association, from the condo association, there may be 75% or 80% there. They definitely, I don't think they would like to see the whole thing killed. They want to see it go forward, but they just want to make sure that down the road, the current association, it doesn't have an undue burden for all of this maintenance and upkeep where the new condo association just taps on and they don't really have to, collect their own dues and they're not responsible. They just want to make sure that it's equitable all the way across for any potential new owners that are moving in. So,
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. They are receptive to the changes. It's just that they just want to make sure that everyone is, both sides are covered. And
really, to her response today, the only thing Jim and I were able to explain is we could move forward with the public hearing. They could try to figure out what they could do in 30 days. Public hearing will come in August. If they're ready, they're ready. Or we could suggest that the Planning Commission authorize staff to schedule that public hearing as soon as both parties want to proceed forward and they have their ducks in a row, which could still be in August if things happen in the next few days. We have to publish tomorrow, don't we?
Yes.
For the land use.
I believe so.
Yeah, so we don't really have, it's either going to be August or September, but if they could work things out in the next week or two, we certainly could still meet a September deadline from that perspective. But that's really a question of the commission on how you'd want to proceed on this public hearing. We could move forward with August, let the parties figure it out, see who shows up and what the comments are. Or we could postpone it, to September to give them a little more time to communicate. I talked to the developer before the meeting. He wasn't aware of the conversation we had. I think we had it about 3 o'clock this afternoon or something like that. So sort of fresh, new comments that were coming in.
One question I do have for either John or Jim is there time sensitivity to the public hearing as it relates to the planning for the construction of these new single-family, multifamily homes? Obviously, the sooner the better, but
From a developer perspective, I'm sure sooner the better. In terms of the next steps we have to go through, there's the land use and the zoning. We would need to also have a site plan review process, which still has not been submitted. So after the zoning is done, there'll be another item on the agenda in September, October for the site plan. And then there is a development agreement between the city and this development that with the changes that are proposed, we're going to have to amend that development agreement. So once you have the zoning, the land use, the site plan, and an amended the development agreement, then the developer would be able to come in and do any CSMs or plats that might be needed, and then building permits. So with all of those things that need to happen, I think I would estimate we would be doing, I'll just call it all approvals and paperwork, probably through the fall. I think it could be, if organized well, it could be taken care of by December, January with no problems. Obviously, that's in the timing is in the developer's hands, but then they would be in a position for permits come March, April, spring. So there's a lot of other steps that need to happen.
and maybe I was leading the witness. I was trying to understand as to whether they were trying to put a shovel in the ground yet in this building season before the winter, and whether that's something that was even attainable with all the steps that need to line up, which would necessitate us potentially taking action on scheduling a public hearing for August versus September or such a time when we feel they're in a better position to
If
line.
the developer were to, if we were to schedule it for August public hearing, action by city council in August, and we were getting a site plan submitted in the next couple weeks, as well as working through that development agreement, it is possible you could wrap all those things up maybe by October, but then you're right on that cusp of winter construction. So most developers are going to want their foundations going in September, October, not right before Thanksgiving.
No, that's fair. Any other comments or questions? We'll start with Jed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I don't see the condo association controversy, whatever issues they're having, as concerning Plan Commission. We're just concerned about the land use. So there's really no reason why we should delay the next step, because their business has nothing to do with changing what we're talking about, right?
Yes and no. I guess you could think of it as not really those agreements as being a private matter between two different parties from that perspective. But as we discussed with the association this afternoon, it certainly is a big step forward with them having some unknowns, and they would feel much more comfortable having those things more finalized and worked out. So you're right. There's a nexus of a kind of a blurred connection there. Is it as crisp and clear? No, from that perspective. So, it's basically if there was a vote of postponing it to like September, I think the message to the developer and the association is Planning Commission is interested in moving it forward, but you guys need to come together, get your ducks in a row so that it's a smooth process. If you guys chose to move forward with the public hearing tonight, I think it's a mess. Still the same sort of message. It's just you're going to have to hope that the two parties work those things out in their own time. So,
I'll ask the question, and I appreciate your perspective on that, Jed. I think the other side of that coin is there's a current condo association that has a land use plan that they put in place when they started their condo association. And that is the status quo, and we would be changing that status quo by taking an action on scheduling the public hearing right now without their consent or desire to have that changed stated.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the land use and the zoning that's proposed being changed does cover lands that are within the jurisdiction of their association. So their condo docs are regulating those areas. As I mentioned, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially that association, if we look at page 168, I think, if with the existing zoning, essentially the condominium association, you'll see that with that red line on the outside, there's an RM1 in the middle, and then there's that kind of a outer ring, so it's kind of makes a C. The condo association covers that area that's the C, and then the part that's the middle of the C, or that semicircular area, that's the area that the condo association doesn't govern. So the first 12 units that they would be building would be kind of at the bottom of that circular area, which would have to be covered by a different association. But as soon as they get into phases 3 and 4, going up towards the Main Street, up to Barton Avenue, those are all going to be within that existing condo association. So that all the dues, all the maintenance down the road, all those roofs and utilities are all going to be part of that association. So, you know, they're, how do I put it? It's, I'm trying to think of a scenario.
Yeah.
But it's essentially like if you own a piece of property and if you had zoning that allowed a house to be built next to you, it's like some person coming and doing something on your property, sort of. I mean, it's sort of, so they have, you know, they're the ones enforcing the rules, the regulations, design controls, things like that.
Any other comments or questions? Mike?
John, do you feel comfortable if you would go ahead and publish that public hearing for August? And then if in a couple of weeks they don't have their ducks in a row, you leave it up to staff to postpone it? Or move it to September?
To be honest, we've heard the same conversation for, when did we meet with them? February? March? It was still sort of cold out, so it's been at least 3 or 4 months. So I think this, you know, listening to the association, I think their request is just they're kind of hoping it will be a nudge to finalize all those documents. I mean, we could certainly go forward with a public hearing in August. I just think that if there was enough time to get the two parties to clean things up, that extra 30 days to wait till September, it just might make for a smoother, you know, process, and we would then know all the parties involved are on the same page. It certainly does if we had a public hearing and the association then comes out and they're not happy with things and the developer's there, then you're going to have a much more interesting hearing.
I'm going to start with Scott.
Well, just to be clear, so the association does want something there. They just would like a better communication with whoever's going in there. That's kind of what they're saying?
Yes, they are very interested in having more units and having neighbors. They don't mind the site plan or anything like that, but their hiccup or concern at this point is just when those units connect into the private sewer, they do not have a mechanism to get any funds from that new association. So the new association has to be created that says these people are going to pay into this association and how much. The current association has to have their bylaws changed to basically say they can collect the money from this other association, and then when they get to phase 2 with all the new units within their association, they would have some amendments that have to be there. So you have a brand new document and an existing document, and yet they have to come together. The association, my understanding is, had an attorney involved. There's been a lot of back and forth. She said today they thought they had a very good document that they sent back to the developer, and then the developer's attorneys redlined it all over again. And so they just are going back and forth with red lines. So,
Okay.
like I said, I think they're like 75 to 90% all committed. It's just the assurity of, I mean, I think you can I guess, you know, if all this went through and approved, and then he created this new association, and this new association didn't have to pay into this other association, and they tap in, then you have all these people, you have 12 units that don't have to pay the maintenance. I mean, it's would be a good, I think they're just looking for equity amongst all the future units.
Yeah.
So I guess I would give them an extra 30 days to get their communication together. It is July, it's vacations, it's all that kind of thing. So it's always a hard month to get people together. So to give them July and August, have the hearing in September, if they don't come together in 30 days, then that's going to be telling too, I guess.
Max, you had a comment?
Yes, I wanted to say a lot of things, but I didn't get the opportunity. John covered everything I wanted to ask about, whether they are close to getting together and on a resolution, whether that was going to impact the plan to develop the land. And then right now, my position would be to give them the opportunity to get together or finalize what they need to finalize and schedule the public hearing for September. And then if, like you said, they do not show up at that point, we can still move forward, but giving them the opportunity to finalize what they need to finalize in the next month or so. That would be my position.
I would tend to agree with you, Max, and your comments about the lawyers going back and forth and redlining documents is something that lawyers should be doing within the confines of their firms and not having those red lines come into a public hearing, which is a foreseeable outcome if indeed over the course of the next 30 days they aren't aligned. And I don't think that becomes an appropriate forum for having those types of discussions and debates, and it very well could turn into that, from my opinion. So I would actually at this point move to consider scheduling a public hearing for, we do, it would have to be
You have a positive motion on the table. So if you vote yes, it would mean that you're recommending.
I forgot about the fact that there was a motion on the table.
Yeah.
So you are correct.
Yeah, so if you voted yes, it would be a recommendation to have staff move forward with the next available public hearing we could have. If your vote were to be no, then.
We could amend it.
You could, well, then it would be, it would be a motion the motion would fail, and then you could introduce a new motion. Or you could do a friendly amendment. Yes, by the person who made the motion and then re-second.
And, yes, Max.
Thank you. I wanted to add that I understand Jed's comment and about the Plan Commission is not to resolve the issue, but that's why I'm saying we could say September to give them the time to do this, but hold that line whether they're ready or not because of the comment you said, Jed. So I wanted to clarify that. Like we're not going to go out to November, December, January, et cetera.
And if I could say, the applicant is the developer, not the condo association, so at some point it becomes a matter of fairness to the applicant, right? That we don't keep punting this.
I can see it that way too. I can see both sides of that, Jed.
That's kind of how I feel about it too, is this is really just our decision on, or our moving forward with the best use of the property, not who actually does it at this point.
So at this point, we have a motion on the table and a second to approve to schedule a public hearing at the earliest convenience to amend the 2020 land use map amendment. We've had much discussion. I will ask if there are any amendments to that.
I do have a question to clarify.
Yes?
Because the motion doesn't say a date. The motion says at the earliest convenience. Does that mean August?
The earliest convenience would be August because we can put it in the paper tomorrow and we'd have all our timing correct.
Okay.
Who, did Mike make
Scott did.
Scott made the motion?
So technically Scott could, if he wanted to, he could.
Amend it if he feels.
And if-
Oh, you mean to push it off, or?
If you have an amendment to move it to a later date other than earliest convenience, then you can make that amendment to the motion. Otherwise, we'll vote on the existing motion on the floor.
I mean, I wouldn't change it, no.
Okay, thank you. At that point, we've got a motion, a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Any opposed?
No.
All right, that motion fails. Are there any further motions to be made on this?
I will make the motion to have the public hearing scheduled for the month of September, the Plan Commission meeting to happen in September.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you, Max and John, to schedule a public hearing for September Plan Commission meeting for a 2020 land use map amendment from multifamily residential to mixed use located south of Barton Avenue and east of Rainbow Lake Lane by the city of West Bend. Is there any further comment or question on that motion? I will add a comment that based on everything John and Jim you have indicated, I would strongly urge you to communicate with both the developer and the Condo Association to, as you said, get their ducks in a row prior to that meeting. From everything I've heard, both parties are amenable to moving forward with this project and this development, and urge them to get to the point where they can reach agreement so that it's not a fruitless public hearing. With that said, any other comments or questions? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries with one nay. Next is next we'll be scheduling the public hearing. I'm going to amend that. Or is this the same? Oh, sorry, this is a different one, correct?
It's a zoning now.
It's the zoning.
Yeah, it's the second component.
Okay, so if that be the case, then I'm going to make a motion to set a public hearing for September for zoning map amendment from RM1 multifamily residential and SW shoreland wetland and RM1 multifamily residential, RD2 family residential, and RS4 single family residential southwest shoreland wetland located south of Barton Avenue and east of Rainbow Lake Lane by Hillcrest West Bend LLC. Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. Any comments or discussions on that motion?
So this is just to change the zoning, right?
Correct. And basically, what we're doing now is aligning it with so that both public hearings are happening at the same meeting.
Okay.
No further comments or questions. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. There being no further business before the Plan Commission, I adjourn as chair with thanks and gratitude for everybody for a longer meeting than we typically have. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Joel.